I'm Wayne Carey, and this is The Truth Hurts.
Well, hello again for another episode of The Truth Hurts. I'm Ayrton Woolley alongside Wayne the King Carey. Now, Duck, how was your weekend?
Another interesting weekend, be fair to say. Ricky Nixon's 60th birthday.
Yeah, I was a bit worried. I saw that was coming up.
On Saturday night. So look forward to it. And I'll tell you what, he a lot going on there. Yeah. It was a lot of fun, very well put together. I tell you what, he had some big names. Sam Newman, who he's very good friends with, and a legend, very funny, got up and spoke about Chook. Some people probably didn't like a few of the things he said, but, you know, Sam is as honest as a day's long. Dane Swan, obviously, one of Chicken's good mates. Des Tuddenham. You had Spiro Corcomelis, Michael Gardner, Wow Jones, the great Johnny Rombotis. So
quite the crew there.
A lot of business people as well.
So obviously your long-time manager, Ricky, you've known him for what, 20, 30 years
I've
been now?
Yeah, I met Chicken when I was, probably 22 or something like that, 21, 22. So a long time. Had his ups and downs and his roundabouts and everything else, but he put on a really good show, and it was a lot of fun. A lot of shenanigans, people dancing and singing. He had bands. He had everything going on there.
I keep reading
comedians, the whole lot.
I keep reading about these warring 60ths that he's supposedly having with Warwick Kappa. So can you just clear this up? They were meant to have a 60th together, were they? And then it hasn't quite happened?
I don't know exactly the circumstances. I don't get caught up in that sort of rhubarb. But apparently, yes, they were meant to have a joint 60th birthday, but I think somehow the Wiz put out an invite and Chicken's name wasn't big enough on the invite. I don't know. So something happened like that. So the Wiz, I think the Wiz has his this Saturday night.
Are you going to be there?
The same venue. No, one 60th of that scale's enough for me.
He's an interesting character, the Wiz, isn't he? I remember doing a story with him after Jeremy Howe took a Mark of the Year once, and his act is, or what he says is it can be quite funny, but he doesn't really stop even when the cameras aren't rolling. It's just kind of what he is, isn't it?
No, he's a little bit like Vegemite. Little bit goes a long way. So anyway, it was a lot of fun. I had an absolute ball. Got criticised, by the way. Well, I walked in. I got there a little bit late because I had something on beforehand. So I was there at 10:30. The paparazzi jumping out behind the thing to get a photo. I think the Chook might have lined that up. I don't think they were actually there, but there was someone with a camera taking photos. But when I walked in, everyone just went, "Oh, Duck, you're going a little bit overboard with your aftershave," which I tend to do. And anyone that knows me well knows that I overdo the aftershave. I put on about 50 sprays wherever I'm going. Doesn't matter whether it's coming in here. And so when I get into a lift or walk into a room, generally people know where I am initially. But what I explain to people, it might be overpowering at the start, but by 2 or 3 a.m. it's perfect. It just soaks in by that stage, and it's at the perfect level.
And here you are questioning me when I arrived this morning. You said,
"Mate, you've got no idea. You sounded not sounded like, you smelled like you had Jupe or something on, or
you said
Old Spice, or what was it?"
No, I don't think it must have been someone who walked past you. I just had the Rexone, a bloody from the supermarket type stuff.
You don't come across as someone that knows how to apply aftershave properly.
I'll
do a segment on here.
How many segments you got? That many segments you're going to show us? Just tell me how do you do it? Then?
Well, you do. Well, most people a spray behind each ear. That's a trigger point there. I do a bit on the chest because if you have the shirt undone down, it makes your chest glisten. Right? You do a spray. On the wrist, each wrist, about 30 times each time, and then this is the magical bit that people don't understand. When it does wear off, right? So you get to 2 or 3 in the morning, and you can't smell yourself, so that's worn off. So you can reignite it with clear fluid. What I mean by that, so you can actually dip your finger in your beer. Don't do it with red wine, obviously, if you've got a white shirt on. So in your beer or water, preferably, don't bruise it. Just gently touch where you've applied that aftershave, and it will reignite. It actually, it takes off again. It does. I've experimented with a lot of people with this, and over the years, I've asked girlfriends and all sorts of, I've said, does this work? I've been at parties, I've done all, and 100% the reignite works.
I'm getting big.
I want all the young boys out there that go out, and there's one aftershave in particular that I like to throw out there. You get it from Chemist Warehouse, and it's not expensive at all. It's called Desire by Dunhill, and it's discontinued. Now, all the young boys that have got partners out there, they'll look out, because if they wear that out, it has a very good strike rate. People absolutely love it. It is a very fresh, sweet smell. So you probably it's not going to do you any good anyway. But it's
getting very strong Ron Burgundy Anchorman vibes from you at the moment, talking about aftershave. Hey, I've got an apology to make, and maybe while we're on the personal hygiene topic, I was a bit late getting in today. I had my underwear in the dryer this morning because I didn't do my washing.
We're going real low.
I didn't do my washing early enough yesterday. I'm running low on.
I was going to say, how many pairs have you got?
I'm running low. Well, I just can't find the ones I want, and so I'm getting to the stage where these ones are getting a bit holy, and my partner will often throw them out when she decides when they've had enough. Same with socks, because I get a lot of holes in my socks. They're gone.
Mate, you're hanging on to them far too long if you're getting holes in them.
Well, I'm 30. I feel a bit bad about this, but I'm 35 and I don't buy my own socks really. My partner buys them. I've still got my mum buying my.
I think everyone tends to do that. I went through stages with undies where I didn't wear any, and then sort of got onto the boxes.
When you say stages, like what are we talking? How old were you?
Yeah, so mid-20s, didn't wear underwear. Thought that was the way to go, and then started wearing boxer shorts, and then the tight briefs, which I wear now. And favourite brand, Calvin Klein. I think everyone, you get bought a present, they buy you the Calvin Kleins. But I've got onto the tradies. They are unbelievably comfy. So when I was at Triple M, the tradies gave us a few pair, so got to check them out, and they are very, very comfortable undies. So if you're going to buy some new ones, go the tradies.
Are they in your stable? Are they tradie or you?
No, they're not. No, I like I said, I've got a little bit of both, but I have enough pair, Ayrton, that I don't have to, go to the dryer every day.
I couldn't imagine. Like, I've never gone the whole free balling thing. I don't find it particularly comfortable. Like, I don't know how you. I
think it was.
You'd go out of a Saturday night and you wouldn't be.
It was trendy, obviously, back then. I don't follow trends. I start them. No, then I don't know why I did it, but I just thought that I couldn't. I was very uncomfortable in undies, but they're not undies anymore. They're the sort of tight briefs.
Yes.
So very different. They're very different comfort than what they used to be. They've improved.
Now, we might as well talk some football while we're here, I reckon, after we've got those important topics out of the way. I went to see the Bombers yesterday. I'm a Dons man. I was a bit nervous about that game yesterday against Adelaide, because Adelaide have, obviously pushed Collingwood a few times. They've been in decent form, maybe not travelling, away from Adelaide so well. But I left that game being more excited about Essendon than I try and keep a lid on it generally, but being more excited about the Bombers than I have in a long time. They won by 3 goals. They should have won by 40 points. The way they played made me think that maybe finally, and this is one I always get sent, the Twitter account, it counts up day by day by day, over 6,000 days since Essendon's won a final. I think this year might be the year that they jag one.
I think they're a tease. Just like Carlton are winning games again, and everyone's saying maybe they might play finals. They're teasing us.
You're a party people.
They were very good last week. They nearly beat the team that's won 12 in a row after the siren goal, as we spoke about last week. So they're in good form. And Adelaide, as you said, have been playing well, albeit away on this occasion. But I just think they're teasing you. I don't think they're going to do anything. They're one of the teams that are obviously right on the verge of, whether they're going to be the bottom part of the 8. Could they get on a run and challenge for a flag? I said last week that if you make the 8, you can win the flag. I'd be prepared to say that the Bombers couldn't do that. They might win a file, but I think they're teasing you.
Yeah, really interesting.
And Carlton all of a sudden is teasing their fans after doing what they've done this year and just getting them all excited again. And then, what will happen? Then they'll lose a couple of games and then they'll be disappointed.
I'm less bullish on Carlton. Well, the Dons have disposed of Carlton. They were 4 goals up against Collingwood when they played them earlier in the year. Collingwood's probably been the benchmark. They've beaten Melbourne, pushed Port Adelaide twice this year. They've done it. It was the way they played yesterday, though, that was. No, there was a ferocity about the way they moved. They were around the footy, and then they moved the ball really well. Still got a few forward line deficiencies maybe, but
it's amazing when you move the ball quickly. And look what Carlton have done over the last few weeks when they actually get it in there with a little bit of speed, a little bit of purpose. They look like a different team, but teasing.
I should have known you would not give the Dons any.
No, I don't. Well, talking about
you just don't like them.
Talk about not giving any credit. I love the Dons. I used to love playing against them, but I'd tell you who, talking about giving credit, North Melbourne. Competitive for 3 or 4 weeks in a row, but their last few weeks they've just gone backwards again. And what I will say, so disappointing in terms of how they're playing, like another 10-goal loss on the weekend, but at least now the one shot, at least now you go to games and you say, well, you know what? Obviously Wardlaw didn't play yesterday, but Mackay and Larkey and Sheasel and LDU obviously they've got some players that you actually go to watch now. So there is some green shoots, albeit they're not putting it out on the park. But the reason why they're not putting it out on the park and they're now back to losing, it's their leaders, their older players that I think are the ones that are letting them down. Now, you've got players that actually got dropped on the weekend, and then you've got, Zeeble, ex-captain, being a warrior. Is he gone? I know David King has said in recent times he think he might have had enough. He's been on the fringe for the last couple of years, but they're the ones that aren't paying. Even Luke McDonald, who's a best and fairest winner, I love the way Luke goes about it, but has had not a great couple of weeks.
So you're still feeling a level of positivity. So I've found that really hard to see in the last few weeks.
When you've had nothing, and when I mean nothing, they've had very few players that you would pay $2 bob to go and watch. And now I think they've got some exciting shoots that you actually say, and if you've got a kid, like for instance, if I take Carter to the footy later this year and I might take him to a North game, and I'll sit there and say, watch this kid, watch this kid, watch this kid, because they're going to be the ones that he grows up and says, oh yeah, that's who I want to be.
Well, I'm glad you've got that, because I'm not like maybe you're not seeing not seeing the positivity out of Essendon. I'm not seeing at North Melbourne right now. I'm actually a bit surprised by that, because I've watched it there the past few games, and I've found it tough.
You've got to look at the positives. Tell you what, the negative though, Max King hurting his shoulder again.
Yeah, I want to ask you about Max. So your shoulder history. How many surgeries do you reckon you had on your shoulder?
I had 2 or 3 reconstructions on the left and one on the right, and the left's the one that's being replaced. By the way, we did mention this last week. It was meant to be replaced last Tuesday. The surgeon is apparently better and at work today, so I could be in hospital over the next few weeks. Hopefully very soon.
When you did your rehab for your shoulders, how much did you weigh up surgery versus pushing through and?
So it's just on the time of the year.
Okay.
So Max King, they're looking at playing finals. Could he, depending on how much inflammation, how much it's bled, he might choose now, because there's only a certain amount of rounds to go, that he might just push through and play the season with a shoulder that dislocates. Once again, there are shoulders that come in and out, and players can play with them, albeit it's a nuisance and painful. Or you just bite the bullet again and say, have the operation, come back fully fit. You've got the whole.
So that's what they've done. They've put him out to pasture. That's 2 surgeries in 1 year. So how does that happen? Because it was really innocuous, wasn't it?
Well, what surprises me, if you've done the work, because generally the operation makes the joint it should come back. It should come back even stronger. He came back. He had enough time to come back and be right. It was a very the way it came out, it looked like it came out very easy, didn't it? It was just him throwing a swinging arm. So. That is a concern. A whole summer. The one thing I do know is that if he does all the work over the summer, he can come back and be at his best. It won't hold him back. I think shoulders and even knees now. Max Gawn had 2 or 3 reconstructions one of the greatest ruckmen that we've seen in the modern era. So, you can come back from these injuries, but a lot of it, it's mental. Whether they now do it tighter, so they're all the things that will be going through his head. But it's a shame.
Did you feel better or worse after certain surgeries? Does each surgery feel different? You talk about maybe doing it tighter. So did you notice, say, second or third surgery, a change in your shoulder and how it felt?
No, I think as the arthritis kicks in and certain aspects of that, and then the staple in my left shoulder just got displaced. It was just sitting in the muscle. So there's all these different reasons. Then you've got scar tissue. So, there's a lot of jargon that you can go through. But basically that's what's wrong with mine now. It's just full of arthritis and scar tissue, et cetera, et cetera. But he'll come back. He'll be back.
Now, it was earlier in the weekend when Richmond played Sydney. I saw some interesting discussion around Toby Nankervis, who will front the tribunal for his hitting on Jake Lloyd. So Jake Lloyd was out of the game. Nankervis went on to have a big impact. I think it might have been Adam Cooney was one who was calling for the send-off rule because he said, Nankervis has gone on and had this influence while Lloyd couldn't. It's a discussion that comes up from time to time, the send-off rule.
Yeah.
What are your views on this?
No, not a fan of it. We've changed too many rules already, and they just want to keep. What do we want to turn this into soccer? Is that what we want? Do we want Aussie rules to be the same physicality and the same rules that soccer has? Because that's what everyone's calling for. It's ridiculous. No, and I know they have it in other sports, and they've had it in other sports for a long time. Ours hasn't. Leave it alone.
I agree wholeheartedly, and I've heard Gillan McLachlan talk about this when it was put to him, and he's someone who has played local footy and goes and watches local footy and seen it at local level where a player can be sent off, and it's always very subjective when they get sent off. It's controversial. It's not clear cut necessarily, and then Nankervis will go to that was graded as careless, not intentional. So if it's a careless act, how could that be a red? It's just a can of worms, surely.
Yeah, no, I agree. So, I don't think you can because there'll be mistakes made and it'll cost someone a fine or a flag. So, don't like it.
Nick Daicos has been a big discussion point for us at the Truth Hurts in recent weeks.
You have a man crush on Nick Daicos.
Well, no, I was a bit like you earlier in the year, and then I thought maybe.
What do you mean, like me? What did I say?
Well, you suggested maybe that he could be a little bit harder at times.
I didn't say that.
Well,
I said he's not a bull at the footy. He's an unbelievably skilled player, and what he's showing is now when he moves up onto the ball, he obviously can kick goals. His work rate's incredible. He's a class act, but he's not a Dangerfield, Selwood, or a Zach Butters type inside mid. He's the class. He's the polish.
I certainly don't disagree in terms of the Dangerfield links or anything like that, but the way that he played against the Bulldogs, I almost elevated him in my mind for he won 4 or 5 centre clearances in a row. He kicked some amazing goals. He was so clean. It got me thinking about this broader discussion about who is the best player in the competition right now, or maybe framing it another way. If you could draft one player, who's the first player out of the whole competition that you pick right now?
Right now?
Yeah, right now.
Because of his age, and I can see the way he's going. Huge Hagan.
Jamarra.
Yep.
So we had a great game against Collingwood.
So if you look at the other key, we've got a lack in this competition of absolute gun. I mean, Jeremy Cameron's a gun. We know that. We know that Hawkins has been a superstar, all Australian, all of that. Darcy Moore's a unbelievably good centre half back. But when you look at like Walker is leading the Coleman, and at his age, it sort of suggests that we don't have. Oscar Allen's one that playing in a poor team that I think could be anything. But there's it's not a lot, and he's playing. He's got sticky hands. I'm one of the ones that in his first couple of years, because of his work rate and everything else, I just thought, is he gonna reach the potential that everyone thought? Well, yes, he is. He's a gun, and you can just see now he's getting confidence, pack marks, sticky fingers, uses the ball really well. He's going in the right direction. So because of his age, and what he's capable of doing, and he's a key position player, I'd take him ahead of any other player in the game.
That's a big call. So you're taking him ahead of even guys that are mid-20s like your Bonts or these type of guys.
Bont's closer to the end than he is to start. This kid's just starting. He's the first one I'd pick.
Yeah, big call. Where does Nick Daicos sit in that discussion?
He'd be clearly you would take Nick Daicos. He's in the argument. He's in your top few that you would take if they were available, but they're not going to be. But a good big man's better than a good little man every day, and that's because they're not as they're rarer. There's midfielders. The midfielders running around everywhere. Basically, the whole everyone plays midfield these days.
I probably didn't expect it. Well, I didn't expect you to say Jamarra. I did expect you to pick out a key position player.
Because you've got to look at age,
yes,
and where they can get to. And, like the others, like I said, Danaher's having a really good year. We know Charlie Curnow is shown us what he's capable of the last couple of years. But
okay, so if I ask it in the first way, who is the best player in the competition right now? Because up until recently, Dustin Martin has probably held that mantle for his ability in the big moments. So who?
Dusty Martin had that incredible year. Yep. Where he won the Brownlow and all of that. That's one of the best years I think any player's ever played. I think it's too hard. I liked it. I don't think – I hate the way in our game we want to compare eras and then in the other instance we want to compare – I think so the best key forward in the game now is still Jeremy Cameron, even though he hasn't played the last week. That's in my opinion.
Yep.
I think he's the best key forward. I think the best half back in the game right now is Nick Daicos. The best midfielder in the game right now, I think Lockie would kneel. I don't know.
I'd have a couple ahead of Lockie. Yeah,
Petrarca, Oliver. There's a few around. I think Paddy Dangerfield before he got injured showed us that he's still right at the top of the tree in some of those areas. But don't compare the best centre half back in the game, even though he gives you a 20-foot leg rope at times, is Darcy Moore.
Yeah, well, you've spoken about that before, and Jamarra was one of the ones who took advantage of that. I know we didn't.
And Tex Walker did as well.
Yeah, so how do you weigh, as an outside observer, so we're talking about Darcy Moore here, how do you weigh up his, because they're obviously getting a level of attacking, they're starting their attacks from him. So how do you weigh up what he's giving his opponent versus...
Because what he gives up, so he's given up one of the most goals as a key defender, but what he gives you on the attacking sense and then what he saves by going over to support teammates, I think alleviates what he's giving away. I mean, he's that good at that aspect that it covers up a few goals on the other way. But what teams are clearly starting to do the last couple of weeks, they're saying, go through him, go through his man. So Darcy's got to find it. He's a good enough player. He's just got to work out. Maybe he does have to play that little bit, take a little bit of the attacking flair away, and maybe just maybe that 5 metres closer to his man rather than let him off, because he does give you a chance.
Speaking of number one draft picks, I'm watching with interest a guy by the name of Victor Wembanyama in the NBA. So he's just been taken number one by the San Antonio Spurs. So he's been.
He's about 7'88".
He's huge. He's huge. So he's come from France. He's been playing over in Europe. He's now playing in the Summer League, which is like the NBA preseason. Basically, he's been touted as the best player almost since LeBron, which is huge raps and huge pressure. And even after one game where he played pretty well in the preseason, social media was lighting up with him being a supposed bust. How huge is that? You spoke about the pressure on Jamarra and maybe wondering whether he'd make it. How huge is that pressure for these players to carry?
Over there, when you're talking about a game like the NBA and in America, it's a huge pressure. And you only have to look at the number one draft picks in our game and seen how some of them haven't handled it as well as others, and some have been unbelievably good. So, but it does. It comes with that mantle of you're the number one, you're expected to be really good. If you go number one, you're expected to be great, aren't you?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's the pressure that comes with that.
You didn't have too many down periods. Did you ever feel a level of external pressure on you?
Every week. every week you know that if you play well, the team probably wins. If you don't play well, the team, mightn't win. So that's the pressure. And by the way, I'm not saying that was actual reality. I'm saying that's the pressure that I put on myself. Wasn't any pressure from within. So I played on fear of failure, and a lot of players do that. So yeah, that's always there every week.
Going to go to some of our listener questions now. We'll stay on the footy theme for the moment. This is from Jackson Robbins. Thoughts on GWS and Gold Coast after 15 years? Was expansion a bad choice, good choice?
Just before I go, I've failed to mention Zach Butters. He's having a pretty good year too from Port Adelaide. Sorry, what were we saying?
Jackson Robbins, thoughts on GWS and Gold Coast? Was it a bad choice expansion? One more than the other, or?
I love Kevin Sheedy, and he won't like me saying this. And I've been criticised over the time, but I've always said that I don't know why they came into the comp for starters. I think GWS have been a success despite not winning a flag. They've been to a grand final. They've been to prelims. They've been to semi-finals. Leon Cameron did an unbelievable job. Kevin Sheedy at the start. But they'll be forever propped up in this comp, in my opinion. Did we need two teams in Sydney? Well, probably more so than I think the Gold Coast. I know they get upset when you talk about it, but I thought Tassie should have come in before the Gold Coast. That isn't how it worked out. It's been quicksand up there for a lot of sporting codes that haven't been successful. Why that is, I don't know. You get, like I said earlier this year, that a lot of people that live up there are on the run. They don't have, and they already have teams. So whether they've come from South Australia or Victoria or Sydney, and they're all living up there, they've already had a team. So do they just go and adopt, this new team called the Suns? They obviously haven't played finals yet. They'll be forever propped up. Has it worked? No. Remember the rugby? Remember the boys, Izzy and Hunt?
Israel Folau and Carmichael Hunt. Yeah, it seems a long time. It seems an eternity ago now, doesn't it?
That was the most farcical thing that we've done to our game. And the fact that they had to do that to make the game relevant in those areas tells you how wrong both decisions were at the time. I am a fan of how GWS is run. I don't know as much about the Gold Coast Suns, but I do know key people in there, and I think they've done an unbelievably good job, despite not winning a flag. They've lost so many players. They've made mistakes in salary cap and had to get rid of players for different reasons, but I think they're a strong club. They can make it. I still have my doubts, I think, about the Gold Coast Suns.
Yeah, it is an interesting discussion because the Suns, I think, their argument is, what we're doing for junior football, local football, has been huge on the Gold Coast, whereas that maybe hasn't translated as much in Western Sydney.
I'll tell you what happens when you go up to, and the AFL talk a lot about Auskick, right? And I love Auskick. Little Carter's, he's 4, he goes down there and has a kick around now, and I love the fact that, kids can be a part of it. But you go to those states, go to Queensland and go to New South Wales and go to Auskick and watch the kids kick the ball. And watch them handball it. They don't handball it. They pass it like a rugby ball and they throw it up and kick it like the rugby players kick it. It's a glorified babysitting service. That's what it is. And in a lot of instances, parents just roll up and they drop their kids off. They get 2 or 3 hours on a Saturday morning where they can go and, shopping or whatever they want to do, and then come back and pick the kids up. They're not taught the correct way. Are numbers up? Yes. Do they do? Yes, it is great that they're playing Aussie rules rather than rugby, but I've always said that, they're not necessarily taught the right way, and So I'm not as massive on, these numbers. In those states, for me, it's more about, can you play Aussie rules at certain colleges in Sydney and no, you can't. It's not even an option. Sports masters and principals just say, no, we're not having it. They just don't allow it. So until that changes, then you'll have a bigger I think that's when GWS and even Sydney, I think, then have a bigger, with their academy and everything else, that might change. But there are key schools that don't, you can't play Aussie rules.
Okay, next question's from G-Man, and I'm going to blame you for how he started this message. He says, Anton, still none the wiser on how Duck, he did ask the other week, so apologies I didn't get in the other week, how Duck and his missus decided on Carter for their son's name. So I'm interested in that. Cause
I don't know. I just like the name. It's a bit of an American name. And then I just saw all these signs when I came up with it. And then sort of where I used to live, there was a building called Carter. And I thought, oh, that's a sign. And then I used to drive past Carter Street in Middle Park all the time. I thought, oh, that's got to be Carter. So that's how I came up with it. So nothing out of the ordinary. Coach Carter, have you seen that movie?
Yes, I have seen Coach Carter.
Yeah. So they all just stuck. And I thought CC, the initials CC were sort of cool. That's why I went with it. But my cousin, first cousin, so my dad's brother, son, who was a twin. His name's Jason. His twin brother is Adam. Jason named, and I've got a nephew, Ben James Carey, right? So Ben James Carey. So Jason named his son Ben James Carey. And now Ben James Carey, his son, has now named his son Carter Carey. Do you think that's a bit weird from my...
After you.
Well, yeah, after me. Yeah.
See how long, this is like a year after?
So Ben James Carey was named way after my nephew Ben James Carey.
Oh, so there's two Bens?
Yes, and now Ben James Carey's named his kid Carter Carey.
Yeah,
Find that a bit weird or not?
I must admit, yeah, when you go, well, yeah, surely if there's something that close in the family.
Is that confusing?
But I understand what you're saying. You've named your son Carter, and then within a year.
When I went back to Wagga a few weeks ago, I went to watch North Wagga seniors play, and I went in and listened to the coach, make his speech, and I heard him say, Ben, Ben, and I looked up on the board, and it was Ben Carey. So he was actually playing for the seniors. I might have met him when he was really little, so I haven't seen him. So he was playing, and he's the one that's named his kid Carter Carey.
Yeah, I can't say that's something that I'll do. I found naming. So we've got a 7-month-old daughter, Ayla. We found names really difficult. We parked it for 6 months, and then basically when Katie, my partner, was in labour. We're like, well, we've got to come up with a name here. It
is hard. One thing, like I've got a Charlotte and an Ella, and there's one stage, well, you yell out Charlotte at the park, 12 kids run to you. It's a bit like Frank. If you name your dog Frank or Tyson, if you've got a Rottweiler and your dog's called Tyson, So Charlotte, I didn't think Charlotte was over. I think it's been number one for a long time. I think it's just been knocked off.
Has it? Okay.
From Olivia, something like that. But anyway.
We're just going through the teething stage at the moment. Any tips for teething?
Yeah, that gel stuff.
Yeah, what's...
I don't know what it's called.
That's gel stuff.
There's a gel that you put on their gums to numb.
Yeah, okay. I might have to go and find that.
Yeah.
I've just been dealing with her not sleeping at the moment, so another contributor to me being a little bit late this morning. But that might be a good place for it to wrap it up. We've really gone into some interesting areas this week, Duck. Love your footy takes, though. There's some good stuff there. A really interesting round coming up too. I think we'll learn a lot about some of those teams and maybe whether Essendon is a tease this week, Geelong in Geelong. So I'm going to hold you to account on the Dons.
Yeah, well, if they beat them down there, then you're going well.
Yep, I'll definitely be coming back to you later on in the year on that one. Good to see you again. That's all on the Truth Hurts.